Here's the quiet reason a lot of RAG systems fail. Not the model, not the prompt, but the gap between chunks.
Yes, chunk overlap sounds like a small pre-processing detail, but it decides whether meaning survives when you split a document into pieces.
So, define it cleanly. What is chunk overlap without disappearing into tooling jargon?
Chunk overlap is the shared text between neighboring chunks. If one chunk ends with a sentence or paragraph, the next chunk repeats some of that material, so ideas that span the boundary still exist in both places.
And if you get that wrong, the retriever starts acting smart, while quietly dropping the exact evidence you needed.
Right. Practical example. Imagine a policy document where one chunk ends with, exceptions require director approval, and the next starts with, for purchases above $50,000. With no overlap, the rule and the condition get separated. A query about approval thresholds may retrieve only half the thought.
That's nasty, because nothing looks broken. You still retrieve text. It's just the wrong slice of reality.
Exactly. Too little overlap loses context at the seams. Definitions get detached from terms. Pronouns lose their reference. Caveats drift away from the claims they limit. And step-by-step instructions get cut between the action and the warning.
So, this is less about storage and more about preserving continuity.
Continuity and retrieval quality. In RAG, documents are turned into searchable units. If a meaningful idea lives across a boundary and you don't preserve enough of it on both sides, retrieval becomes brittle. The system looks precise, but it misses the connective tissue humans rely on.
Give me another case where that brittleness really hurts.
Take API docs. One chunk explains that a parameter is optional. The next chunk says, if omitted, the server defaults to UTC unless a regional header is present. A developer asks why timestamps changed. If retrieval returns the first chunk without the conditional default, the answer sounds plausible and is still incomplete.
And incomplete answers are the dangerous kind, because teams ship based on them.
Yes, the cost is strategic. The team with better chunk boundaries gives more grounded answers and wastes less engineering time chasing phantom bugs. The team with bad boundaries blames ranking, prompts, or the model when the damage happened earlier.
But there's a trap on the other side. People hear this and think, fine, just overlap a lot.
That creates a different failure. Too much overlap means neighboring chunks become near duplicates. Then, retrieval keeps surfacing the same idea in slightly different forms, crowding out other relevant evidence.
So now, instead of missing context, you get an echo chamber.
Exactly. Another concrete example. Suppose you index a troubleshooting guide with heavy overlap. A query about a database timeout retrieves 4 chunks that all repeat the same introductory paragraph on network latency. The actual fix, buried later in the guide, loses rank because the index is saturated with duplicates of the setup.
That's not just noisy. It changes who wins. Systems with too much overlap spend retrieval budget rereading themselves.
And they waste tokens, storage, indexing time, and evaluation time. More importantly, they dilute diversity. Good retrieval should bring back complementary evidence. Excessive overlap makes multiple results feel distinct while saying almost the same thing.
So the sweet spot is not maximum context. It's enough repeated context to preserve meaning without cloning every boundary.
That's the key idea. You want overlap to protect transitions, not dominate the corpus. The right amount depends on how often meaning spans boundaries. Dense legal clauses need more continuity than short FAQ answers. Narrative prose behaves differently from bullet-heavy specs.
Which means overlap is really a bet about where meaning lives in your documents.
Well put. If meaning is carried sentence to sentence, small overlap may be enough. If it often depends on the previous paragraph, cross-references, or conditions stated just before an exception, you need more protection at the seam.
Let's make that tangible one more time.
Picture a runbook for incident response. One chunk ends with, restart the service only after confirming replication is healthy. The next chunk begins with, otherwise the standby may promote with stale state. If overlap is too small, an urgent query about restarting the service may retrieve the command without the warning. If overlap is too large, repeated safety notes can swamp the actual recovery steps.
And that's the tension. Too little overlap makes your system forget. Too much makes it obsess.
Yes, overlap is a precision tool. Its job is to carry context across cuts, not to plaster the same text everywhere. When you tune it with the document structure in mind, retrieval gets sharper, because each chunk is both self-contained and distinct.
So, for programmers building RAG, chunk overlap is not housekeeping. It's one of the few levers that decides whether evidence arrives intact.
Exactly. Split documents carelessly, and you break meaning. Repeat them carelessly, and you bury meaning. The winners preserve just enough continuity to retrieve the whole idea, not just a fragment of it.